Welcome to What's Trending with Tire Review, presented by AAPEX. I'm Maddie Weiner, and today I'm joined by Dave Poling, Director of Tire Development and Product Marketing for GT Tire USA. Yeah. Dave, thanks for being on the show today.
Thanks for having me, Maddie.
Yeah, I'm so excited to talk to you. I know last month I was with you and your colleagues at GT at your plant in South Carolina in Richburg, and got to tour the plant and got to experience a drift along, right, thanks to your Formula Drift partnership. So I'd like to kind of delve into that today with you. So can you tell me how these partnerships help with tire development and what they mean for GT?
Yeah, well, the partnership with Formula Drift really means everything for us, for a lot of things. So first of all, you know, motorsports that we're involved with globally, motorsports is the ultimate test bed for us. So
ultimate proving ground,
ultimate proving ground, right? Yeah. So you just can't get that kind of those kind of environments just driving around in a Camry on a regular touring tire, let's say.
Right.
So for us to be able to test in those extreme environments, those extreme conditions, that really helps us to, you know, develop new technology and then build that new technology back into our consumer tires. And we draw from a lot of racing that we do globally. Mm-hmm. We race in F3 in Asia. We race 24 hours in Nürburgring.
Oh, yeah.
We do off-road racing. We have our Formula Drift series here in the U.S. And so, you know, it means a lot from a technology standpoint, mm-hmm, not just the things that we put into the tire, but how we build the tires, how we process those through the plant, how we mix, you know, new and exotic compounds, mm-hmm, mm-hmm, how we use new reinforcement materials, our building machines.
Yeah, wow.
And then, you know, of course, we also do it for, you know, the exposure from our marketing that we get, which is, you know, millions of impressions through all of that.
Yeah.
It's great.
I definitely want to dig into the marketing aspect too, but I'm curious. So with the Formula Drift partnership, when did that start?
So at SEMA in 2019, we were talking to Formula Drift and we struck up a deal that I wasn't fully aware of until everybody came back from SEMA and said, hey, we're getting into Formula Drift. So
very cool.
So let's go. And so that's in late November by the time everybody starts moving, mm-hmm, forward. And then, of course, the race season, we have to supply tires, I think, was April of 2020.
Wow, that's a quick turnaround.
And so it's a quick turnaround. And so we designed new molds. We luckily had a tire, our Champiro SX2, that is currently made in Indonesia as a good baseline tire. Right. And then we tapped into our global R&D resources, our motorsports people in China, helped us out on some compounding. So anyways, we designed a mold and we got that on order right away. We rushed it in and I think we had that ordered it in December. We had it in January sometime. Wow. So it was super quick, 2 different sizes. And then we had to proceed to start building tires. Because these exotic materials take a long time. I mean, currently we're still, you know, we have to order some of these materials 6 months in advance of mixing for compounds and reinforcement. So,
right.
So it takes a long time. We didn't have that kind of time. So we were actually mixing compound initially in China, shipping it over, and that a lot of logistics involved.
Right. It's mind-blowing.
And then, of course, COVID came along, which made the logistics even more difficult. But we were successful in getting the first tires built. We were able to send those out to the teams for testing. We were able to get tires out to the teams that we had gathered up to use our tires that year, and we were off to the races, so to speak.
Yeah, hey.
Right? So we thought, but the season got delayed because of COVID. So
right, of course,
we bought ourselves a little bit of extra time, but we would have met the mark anyways. And you know, it's a great team in Richburg. You know, the people. You know, we like to push American made. You know, designed in America, made in America, and and they just do a great job, and everybody's out to win.
I definitely want to dig more into that, but just to clarify for, you know, our viewers and listeners, the tire that is used in Formula Drift from GT is the Champiro SX2RS. Am I
That's
saying that
correct.
right?
That's correct.
Okay,
That's
okay,
correct.
cool. Okay,
Which is
okay.
slightly different than our SX2 base tire. It's the RS version, which has the special race compounds, the constructions,
Right.
for racing and things like that. But
Okay.
but they are for sale to the consumer. I actually have them on my car.
Oh,
I have the Pro setup on my Corvette. And,
Very cool.
It really helped the handling quite a bit.
Yeah, I'm
I
sure.
can't drive
yeah.
like those guys. I don't have 1,000+ horsepower in my car or anything, and so
Yeah.
I don't push it to the limit. So even for us guys that are riding on those tires and maybe driving a little hard, we never push it to the limits that they can push it to for us.
Right, right.
And that's where the material technology comes in. The amount of forces that they generate, the amount of heat. And when you see these cars going around the track, the tires are spinning, so smoke going everywhere, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So those wheel speeds are probably around 130 miles per hour.
I did want to pick your brain too. You mentioned working with some of the drivers or Formula Drift on just initially creating the tire. Can you describe maybe, you mentioned a little bit of it, but I'd like to get a little deeper into it, some of the attributes. You talked about high heat that you have to consider when creating a tire for those conditions.
Right. So we didn't get a lot of time to work with the drivers directly on the initial design, just because we were going so fast,
Of course,
as we talked about. But they definitely tested it, and they did provide us some feedback. This compound's better than this compound, and so we were able to help narrow it down that way. But yeah, I mean the heat generation in the compound itself, just the tread compound. So racing, you need to generate some heat in the tire to get it to operating temperature, right? And sometimes you don't want a tire that heats up too fast. Sometimes you want one that heats up. So depending on the racing environment, if you watch the Formula Drift, they need to get heat into the tires instantly because it's just a couple runs, lead follow, and then they're done. So they have their burnout box, they call it. So they're trying to put heat into the tire right away. So so that takes some specialized compounding that will allow that to get up to temperature right away and operate. And then, what's different in a way is they're sort of sliding through these curves, right? The tire's spinning and sliding, but they're still running 1,000 horsepower through these tires that has to somehow still get grip to propel the car forward so they can, when they're following, to stay on top of their competitor that's leading them. And so, we had a lot of conversations about what's the right tire pressure, about lateral grip and longitudinal grip, and trying to balance all that out for them. I think we were fortunate that we hit a home run with the pattern was right, that we didn't have to go in and do pattern changes. We would have never had the time to do that. And
makes sense. Yeah.
We could have done it in subsequent years, but the tires worked really well, as evidenced by, our rise in the points, our team's rise, in the points, 4 podiums this year out of 3 races, 1 first place finish. And so, the teams are doing good. We have 7 sponsored teams, and we supply tires to 12 others.
Oh, okay. Wow. Yeah. That's a lot.
That's about half the field in the pro division. And then we're the spec tire with a new tire in the pro spec division as of, I'll probably get my time right, 2 years ago now. We've been three. This is our 3rd year maybe in pro spec, something like that.
So around the time.
Right.
Yeah.
So they have to run our tires. Awesome. We have a contract with Formula Drift and setting tire prices and all that, just so they can use it. But they've all been satisfied with the tire as well.
That's awesome. And I love digging into the technology and the aspects of what you have to consider for those conditions. But I know we talked about a little bit the marketing side too. So can you maybe talk about how Formula Drift impacts GT's, in this case, GT Radial's brand awareness and, what it has done for you sort of on the marketing side?
Right. Yeah, well, we think it's been a huge boost to our brand awareness. We see it in the bottom line sales now, because the Formula Drift organization works hard on their social media. So I think they have, I don't know, I'll probably misquote the numbers, but millions of people on on Facebook, millions of people on Instagram.
Right.
And some of the individual drivers have huge social media, even the pro spec and the pro drivers, and they work really hard. And, when we do all the metrics, you're talking about, hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of advertising that we're getting out of everything that we put into it. And, we put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into it. They put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into their racing and making sure that they're promoting us. When they're in front of the camera, they're mentioning their sponsors, GT Radial or whoever their other sponsors are. And we get a lot of impressions, a lot of views. I think Formula Drift is only second to NASCAR in social media.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Yeah. And the people that follow Formula Drift are more techie. So they're more of a high-Q tire type person, right? So they're really looking at the tech of it and which tires are doing well. And as they see more and more drivers now, almost half the field running on GT Radials, right? And you get GT Radial splash across the screen at the events and on the live streaming of it.
Yeah.
It's it's huge for us.
So Dave, Formula Drift, that partnership that GT has must be a pretty good, selling point for the dealer at the counter then too.
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, like I said, he can validate that our other tires have that same level of technology, that same level of care that and how they're built. And as I said before, and we want to keep saying, designed in America, made in America. So, I think that's a big deal that he can point to that and use it. And I think we have to continue to make better use of that for our dealers and extend that for them. Because we're starting to see now where some other racing venues are reaching out to us and say, hey, would you be interested in this?
Cool, yeah.
Or would you be interested in that? And, so we have to be picky and choosy about what we do. Right,
of course.
And make the best of it. But, there's some other opportunities that might be coming along for us that we're looking forward to.
You mentioned this a little bit earlier, but talking about that technology transfer from, using what you all have learned from, creating the tires for Formula Drift, we've talked about before, those lessons, if you will, influence other tires that GT produces. You mentioned the Max Tour LX. So I'm wondering if you can maybe chart out for us, how technology developments from the Formula Drift tires have, sort of trickled their way down through the UHP line and maybe into other tires?
Yeah. Well, I think, Max Tour LX came before SX2, the Champiro, right?
Yeah.
So the technology that you see in those tires has trickled down from our other racing efforts around the world.
Oh, okay,
right?
okay.
And what we see with the SX2 RS, the Champiro, that will eventually trickle into other things that we do. It trickles in from a processing standpoint already, right?
Okay.
In how we mix. We've learned new ways of mixing and new methodologies and how to mix difficult compounds that we can use on regular compounds to make those even more efficient. We want to make sure we're building a tire that is very, first class type tire.
Right.
And so when we, the effort we put into making sure that the uniformity is really good on the SX2 RS and that, everything works really well, those same lessons then can be applied to the current tires to make our tire building on those more efficient.
Yeah.
So eventually the materials will filter into the product. It'll happen over time.
Right.
But right now, I think it's lesson learned in processing that's affecting those tires to make it more efficient for us to build the tires.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Okay.
Yeah.
But it is lessons learned at every level, slowly implementing.
Oh yeah, it's definitely lessons learned.
Very
right?
Cool.
Because of all the high heat generation and things like that we've learned from other racing venues, like Nürburgring, 24 hours. That's another brutal test of your tires long-term durability.
The endurance.
The endurance, right? 24 hours. It's a long course, and if something happens and you have a tire failure, you're stranded out on the track, which I don't know, maybe 12 kilometers or something like that. So
God.
it's a big track for the 24 hours.
Yeah.
And it's almost more important to make sure your tire is more durable than it has like super high lateral grip or anything like that. It's about making sure you finish the 24-hour race, right? So there's all different levels of how you implement the technology and what you do, but that's important. And we've had great success at the 24 hours in Nürburgring. We've taken first place in our class several years in a row. We have the first all-female team.
Yeah, I saw that
competed, right?
Very
and
cool.
So that's been great. I think it's been great that we can do those kind of things, and it's been great for that team of females. Being a father of 4 daughters, I love the fact that we have an all-female team that actually had to change out their whole engine because of they picked up damage on the track.
Wow.
Changed the whole engine out and got back on the track.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so those are just feel-good stories, right? From GT.
That's cool.
But so all those things eventually, like I say, they'll filter down.
Yeah.
And as we talked earlier, they are, because part of the reason is they're hard to get materials. They're expensive materials.
Right. Yeah.
But what we're doing now, that will quickly filter into some of our summer tires, right? Well, you'll definitely see some of that. We'll be using some of that technology in some summer tires that are still to be announced coming at some point. But those will happen. Okay. Yeah, we want to continue to upgrade our products as people start to use the SX2 RS.
Right.
Then you see more people using our Champiro HPY, and a lot of people are using that. They're even using that in some drifting, and so
interesting.
We want to see something like Champiro HPY be upgraded with this newer technology.
Very cool.
Right. So
lots to look forward to.
Yeah, there's lots to look forward to.
Love it.
Lots of work for us.
Yeah.
In South Carolina.
Very cool.
Lots of work for our partners and around the world that help us out in R&D and manufacturing. So it's just a constant sharing of technology.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
Yeah.
Now, Dave, I have one more question for you. This may not be directly related to GT, but I am wondering, you have such a focused view into tire development, obviously, from GT's side, but you've worked for other companies in the tire industry, so you have a unique perspective, in my opinion.
Okay.
So what do you think are some of the major advances in race tire technology today that you're seeing on the market, or in these different racing circuits?
Yeah, you caught me off guard a little bit. So most of it comes back to the compounding, right? So as you see in other series where they have multiple compound tires that the racers can choose which ones they want. It's what it really comes down to. It's about fine-tuning your compound to operate in the right operating range, right? Okay. So every compound is going to have different properties across different temperatures, right?
Right.
So
exactly.
it's really about getting the right advanced polymers. I'm not a chemist, and so but I play one sometimes. But it's about getting the right polymer mix and the right carbon black that has the right structure to it, that can withstand the heat, withstand the abrasion, the polymer. Right. So it's a whole system that works, but that's where I think most of the advances are coming. The constructions are, there's always advances in the constructions and the reinforcement materials. You see people, but we've been using it for years, aramid in tires, which is right. And so aramid's a key because it's, a high tensile product, and then you don't get as much deformation, or using rayon body plies, things like that. But some of those things are expensive and not necessary for consumer tires. So sometimes they make it in, and if it's the right platform that's needed, and sometimes they don't. But I think it really mostly comes down to the compounding, right?
Interesting.
So what you're seeing in a lot of racing too now, across other big name series is the tires are getting bigger in the rim diameters where, years
totally.
ago it might have been 13-inch. F3 is still running, I think, 13-inch tires. And so now we're starting to see bigger and bigger rim diameters.
Right.
So that's changing. So we're seeing shorter and shorter sidewalls on most of these tires.
Yep.
And so I'm sure those people, just like us, we will go through more development to what used to work, and then a series will make a wholesale change and say, hey, we're going from this rim diameter to this rim diameter. And now you've got a completely different dynamic in the tire that you have to make sure you work out. So, but yeah, it all comes back to the compounders. I always tell them it's the tread pattern and the construction, but the compound's where you can make up the biggest gain.
Interesting.
Biggest bang for the buck is the compounding,
Very
in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I wanted to hear it. That's interesting. And I could probably talk like tire tech for a while, but I don't know if people would really love to dig into that. But no, thank you so much for sharing your expertise not only on GT's Formula Drift program, but on the tire technology that goes into it, and especially your thoughts on the different race tire technology and what's happening. I appreciate it, and I know our audience will find it fascinating and valuable.
Good, I hope so. Yeah, good, I hope so. I hope they do, and I appreciate you having me on. We love to talk about our tires, our facility in the U.S., and what we do, and all the great people down there in South Carolina, and how hard they work. And any chance we can get to come talk about that and geek out about tire technology, we'd be more than happy to sit down and talk some more about it and delve into those details. But
awesome. Well, thanks for being on the podcast today. We really appreciate it, Dave.
You're welcome. Thank you, Maddie.